Hey everybody, it's your girl, Dr. Rhonda M. Lawson, and I am back with a new episode of Horizons with Meet the World Image Solutions. And I'm excited tonight because I have this awesome author. Well, I have two awesome authors with me as always. But this particular author, we've been trying to meet up for probably the last month, and we were finally able to connect. So I'm super excited to have Mr. Derrick Jakolby Washington on the line with me tonight. How are you?
Hey, Dr. Rhonda, I'm well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking.
Great.
So I met you at the Black Authors Matter event that happened a few months ago. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That is awesome. And then when I kind of read your story, I was like, oh, I really have to have him on the show because you take you have actually set up your author career as a true platform to encourage children. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I tell people all the time that I did not start off with an interest in becoming a children's book author. It kind of just happened. The way that I write is through like real stories or situations that have happened either in society or personal stories. And so I wrote my first book back in 2020 after the George Floyd killing. Uh,
Mm.
and I, like so many other people, sat down. Of course, we were in the pandemic during that time,
Right.
but I sat down after that incident on that evening and just began to kind of reconcile my thoughts and my emotions. And it just so happened that my sister had my nephew 6 months prior, and I began to envision a world. Or envision like what would the world look like for him in the next 15, 20 years or so. Will
Wow.
continue to be judged based on the color of his skin, or will society fully embrace him for the greatness that he has to bring to the world? And so I began to pen my thoughts from that incident, and again that reflective moment, and it morphed into a poem called "Son, You Matter." I ended up reading it to my sister the next day. Because of course the poem was dedicated to my nephew. I read it to her the next day, and she said, "You absolutely need to turn this into a children's book." I was like, I don't know about all of that, because again, was not familiar with the space at all. But I ended up reading it to a few additional friends, and they kind of confirmed essentially what my sister said, and said, "You absolutely need to turn this into a children's book." And so I had a friend that had written a book maybe a few years prior, so I reached out to her, just kind of getting some information regarding her publicist, and her publishing company, and what have you. And she connected me. I think I spoke with the CEO of the publishing company the very next day, and I posted an advertisement on like. Facebook, asking if anyone knew of any Black illustrators, because that was incredibly important to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I posted it, got a few recommendations. I ended up working with India Shanae, who's out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And so the book was written, published, and released in 30 days, which really is kind of unheard of in the in this space. And
Right.
so I tell people all the time that the rest is essentially history.
No, it sounds like you had a goal and you had the right people around you to make it happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm very fortunate in that regard, blessed in that regard, to have like you said, the right people lined up. I think that the timing of it was essential,
Yeah.
because it was a real message, something that was kind of birthed from a very tragic incident. That again is not an isolated incident, but I think that what what kind of sparked my interest in writing per se is again being in the pandemic, like trying to reconcile my emotions, thinking like, oh my God, like when is this going to end? Right? When are they going to stop killing our brothers and sisters, and kind
Yeah.
of sweeping it under the rug?
2020 was just such a pivotal year for so
It,
many things.
it really was. It really was. And so I like you said, I think that having those people in my sphere of influence in my environment, I could reach out, and like I said, the rest is really history.
Wow, wow. So, what do you think it was that really helped the book to take off? Because it's one thing to publish a book, but for
Yeah.
your book to have taken off the way that it did, what do you think was the secret sauce per se behind that?
Yeah, I think that one, timing. I can't speak enough about timing. I believe that I believe that there are no just like things that just happen. Everything is about timing, and so I think that's one thing. Like you just mentioned, having the right people around me, but then not being afraid to kind of step out and do it. Again, this was absolutely foreign to me. I come from a nonprofit background. I have a workforce development interest and lens, and so that's the space that I know. I did not know the publishing space. I did not know the author space. And so the timing and the right people were essential. But then, like I said, being willing to step outside of what was quote unquote comfortable for me, and do something that was absolutely unfamiliar. I think in addition to that, social media played a integral part in the success of the book. I think I posted a few advertisements about it. I did flyers. I did like short videos. And one of the videos, actually, attorney Ben Crump caught wind of it, and he
Wow.
began to post it and reshare it on his social media. And from there, I think that doors begin to open for me in regards to speaking opportunities. I was featured in our local news and even some international news. Bookstores begin to call and what have you. And so yeah, I think it was just a combination of all of those factors.
And I venture to say I think that's correct. And I tell people all the time that you should always put your best foot forward because you never know who's watching. I mean,
Yes.
you had no idea that Attorney Crump would find your content and share it.
No.
But now, would you say prior to him sharing it? I mean, I'm sure that you had some type of a following for him to have been able to even find you.
Yeah.
But you see a big difference between before he shared and after?
Yeah, I think that him sharing it definitely played a key part. I definitely don't want to downplay, just my ability to work hard to get the
Yes,
book
of course.
out there.
Absolutely.
I
Mhm.
definitely was grinding. I tell people all the time that are interested in pursuing or writing a book, that it does not stop with just writing the book and publishing the book. You have to have
Yes.
a marketing strategy and a plan. And
Right.
so I begin to utilize social media a lot to push the book. And like I said, the local news here in DC caught wind of it, and they did a story on me. And I think that again, in sharing through social media, Attorney Crump caught wind of it. One additional thing that happened that I had no clue even how this happened was Prince Jackson, who is Michael Jackson's son.
Yes.
I think I posted the artist Omarion was doing this thing about promoting children's books because he was reading various stories to his children. And I just put in the comment section, hey, I have a new book out. I'd love to send it to you. Now, he didn't respond back, but his publicist, who's also the publicist for Prince Jackson, reached out. She actually direct messaged me on Instagram and said, hey, we're doing this thing where Prince Jackson features like people that are doing great work within their communities. You take over his Instagram for a day. And so they afforded me that opportunity. Now, Prince
That
Jackson,
is huge. That's
he
a
had a
huge
huge
opportunity.
following. Absolutely. He had a huge following. And so I ended up taking over his social media for a day where I was able to post videos, links to the book, various snapshots of my life or what have you. And I think that, again, with the Attorney Crump exposure, the Prince Jackson exposure, everything kind of took off from there.
I think you're absolutely right about that. And what I'm hearing is that you were fearless in your marketing.
Oh
Because
gosh.
there are some people who would say, "Oh, I would never comment and do that self promotion. People don't like that, and I don't want the backlash, and
Mhm,
I'm afraid to just jump out there." But
mhm.
you were fearless, and then I'm sure you were also respectful at the same time when you posted.
Absolutely.
'Cause I think often we see a lot of new authors, they really want to get their books out there. And so what they do is start DMing people their promos. No hello. No, yeah, no hello, no how are you doing, or would you mind reading my book? Is just shooting a promo to people or
Yeah.
pushing it on their page. And before Facebook really cracked down, you were able to do that. People were just sharing things to people's pages without even
Mhm.
a hello. And
Yes.
um, that's where a lot of that backlash came from. But what you did was they were already talking about wanting to have more books for their children and so forth.
Right.
And you went ahead and put yourself out there, and good things came of it.
Exactly, exactly. I tell people like don't be afraid to promote yourself. I again work in the workforce development space, in the nonprofit space, and I oftentimes work with individuals that are looking to transition their careers, right? And so while I am also an advocate for them, I tell people that no one can sell you better than you,
Yeah,
right? So you have to not be afraid. I don't care how many publicists you hire. I don't care how many people you have working on your team. You need to be at the forefront of pushing your message out to the world, right? And so, so you're absolutely right in that I was respectful to Amarion. They were already engaging in conversations around books, children's books, and so I joined in on what was already an existing conversation, right? I was again respectful, and then it just things opened up from that point. But I want to also touch on the point where you mentioned just like blindly emailing people, blindly DMing people through social media. That is the quickest way to get you blocked, right? And so, and your message is not going to get out from that point. So it
right.
is important that you begin to build a rapport with people. It's okay, every so often. I don't see the harm in sharing a message and maybe commenting on someone's thing, but try to make it as organic and natural as
Yeah,
possible. Don't just
absolutely.
jump in and think that
Yes,
people owe you a share or owe you a like. That's not the reality. And so you want to be intentional. You want to be smart about your marketing strategy, and you want to make sure that you are respectful. Like I think that respect piece is key because you never know where those relationships are or who those people are talking to and how those relationships could blossom. And so it is incredibly important that you are respectful in your approach.
amen to that. Now, I did want to see both of our friend Pamela Coleman is watching.
Yes, yes.
And she asked a really cool question, and I have it on the screen. I don't know if you can see it. She said, before Attorney Crump shared your content, did you ever feel defeated, and what kept you pushing forward? What kept you wanting to continue to promote your book? Were there ever times when you were saying, nobody's seeing this? Why am I doing
Oh
this?
my gosh, I think I still have those moments. Like I think that is that's something that I believe is inevitable, especially as a self-published author.
Yeah.
You don't have like a huge publishing house, a publishing company behind you. It is incredibly difficult to really get the message out there to the broader audience. You're going to spend money. It is a major undertaking. So those of you that are watching and you want to pursue this journey, know that it is an investment. But I think that the key is, especially if the key is you believing in your product, right? You believing
Yes.
in the message in your book and whatever it is, you believing in that. And I think that's what really kept me going and keeps me going, believing that this message is beyond me. It goes beyond just these words on a page that I've had printed out now. I have tons of copies. It goes beyond that. This book needs to be in schools. This book needs to be in youth groups. This book needs to be in communities and what have you. And I think that fuels me. The only thing, what I've learned just in my life in general, the only thing that people can say to you is no, right? If you don't ask, you'll never know whether or not it's going to succeed. If you don't do, you'll never know whether or not it's going to produce the results that you ultimately intend. And so I think it's important to not get defeated with the no's, to not get defeated when it feels like, people aren't embracing your work, just to keep going, because as long as you believe believe in that product, and you can push that message, and that it is serving, or it will serve the greater good of humanity, then keep going, keep pushing.
Amen to that. I mean, I think that's an important message for anybody who's trying to make it in this industry, because it's not a very easy industry. And I know sometimes there are people who are really good at social media, and they try to make it look like it's simple. Like as soon as they wrote their first book, they were New York Times bestsellers.
No. Oh my Lord, no. No, that is not the case. That is absolutely not the case. And the other part, I would say, if you're not good in a certain area, it is okay to seek help, to seek support from those individuals that are well versed or good in those areas. So I think with my first book, it was a lot of me marketing and self-promoting the book. And again, I've been relentless in that matter. I have not ceased in doing that. But I also, in my second book, learned, hey, there are people called publicists out there. There are people that, that you can enlist their skill set. You pay them and they will promote, they will seek out opportunities for you. And so with my second book, I have a wonderful, wonderful publicist that has really opened up a wealth of opportunities that I did not know even existed. With this second book, but I did not know that. Being new to the author journey, in my first book, Son You Matter, it was just like, I have to do this on my own. I feel like I have a message to get out, and so I'm going to push it as much as I can. And so while I am still pushing my product here in this second book, I also have the support of an amazing team.
There you go. You've just said a mouthful. Now we've been talking for a while, but I don't think we've shown anyone your book covers yet.
I hope I have them on hand. See, I wasn't prepared for that. You're hanging up on the wall. But Son You Matter, go to JakolbyWashington.com. Son You Matter is there.
Okay, I did put your link in the chat. Perfect. So people will be able to visit your site and to see your books. And you mentioned 2 books. So you have Son You Matter. That was your first book.
That was my first book, written in 2020. And then A Special Little Girl, which is so incredibly near and dear to my heart, was written and released in October of last year. That's my newest book. And the book is essentially an ode to little kids that learn differently. I have a niece who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 4. She's 10 now, and on a recent trip home to visit, I'm from Florida, and so I went home to visit my family, which I normally do a few times a year, but I attended a gymnastics class with her, and at the end of that class, I literally observed the instructor award every student with an award except my niece.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so what made matters worse was that when we got home, my niece was not really able to articulate her emotions. She certainly is verbal, but when it comes to like being able to express her emotions, she sometimes has trouble with that. And so she oftentimes communicates to us through videos or cartoons or what have you. And so when we got home from this class, she began to replay a cartoon over and over again, which essentially talked about how bad it feels to be left out. And so it broke my heart. It really broke my heart, so much so that I stayed up the majority of that evening researching organizations that focus on working with children that are autistic or neurodivergent. and more specifically, children of color, because we know that there are tons of organizations that center around supporting folks with autism, but oftentimes the resources that are allocated to those organizations don't go to children of color. Right. And so I began to research those organizations. But more than that, I wanted my niece to really take something out of this experience and to know that, no matter what society has to say about you, no matter what people are trying to put on you, know that your family is backing you. Know that you are special, that you are incredible, that you are enough, and that you are loved. And so I began similar to my first book. I just began in that moment to just write my thoughts. It turned into a poem and morphed into a children's book called The Special Little Girl. And it has been a tremendous blessing for me, for my family. My niece has been featured on billboards in Times Square. And so where people tried to suppress her or to overlook her, now the world is seeing her, seeing who she is. And this message is being resounded throughout the country and even, like I said, internationally. And so that's incredibly, like I said, near and dear to my heart. We didn't just stop with the book. I just recently launched a nonprofit because, as I mentioned, in my research of looking at organizations that focus with children of color, I only found two. And one was based in Detroit, and the other was a consulting company that was in Florida, but they actually just recently became a nonprofit, and I am connected to both of those. But I launched Friends of Zion, which is an organization that focuses on conducting research and providing resources and services to children of color and their families that have been diagnosed with autism or other neurodivergent disorders. So I didn't just stop with the book. I'm excited about the book, but we also launched the nonprofit as well.
And this is why I said you have turned just writing a book and becoming an author, you've turned it into an actual platform.
Absolutely.
And, so I love that you even started a foundation, and this started with your love for your niece and your nephew.
Yes.
Which I think is interesting in and of itself. Do you have children yourself?
I do not, but I have tons of god kids and nieces. My friends have children, and they call me Uncle Colby. And so I think that, I ultimately want to have kids, but no kids as of yet.
I think that's what makes this even more interesting and more blessed, because as a man who does not have children, you recognize that your niece and nephew and many children like them still need to be poured into.
Absolutely. I think it takes a village to really raise children and to nurture them. I think that oftentimes many of us have allowed society to dictate to our kids who they will be and who they should be. Back in 2020, we had a president that was calling our children thugs and all of these things. And so that it was incredibly important to me to be a resounding voice to our community. Listen, we are not thugs. We are not less than. We are absolutely brilliant. We are absolutely great. And so I think that message, again, has to be communicated in whatever space that we're in. If you're in the author space, the nonprofit space, the government space, there is a responsibility, I believe, for all of us as people of color to reach back into I almost don't want to say the next generation, because they're here now. They're the now generation. To reach back into the now generation and to help them come along to pour back into them. I believe that many of us have people that as we were coming up, that poured into us, whether it is a civic leader, a family member, or a church leader, what have you. There was some individual that I believe that many of us can recall that spoke a word of encouragement to us, and it pulled us up out of our place, our low place, so to speak, and kind of set us on a path in which we are now. And so I think that, again, it is incredibly important. That's it. Yeah, to pay it forward. Yeah. I think it's incredibly important to do that. And so I've tried my best to do that through the platforms that I am stewarding, through the nonprofit, I do a YouTube series called Storytime with Uncle Colby that is featured every Monday, where I am not only sharing my stories, my children's books, but also creating a platform for other diverse authors that write children's books to share their stories as well. And so we're about to film our second season of that. But I think it's, again, incredibly important that we do just as Sharon is saying, to pay it forward.
Now, I was just about to ask you what's next, but you have so many things going on. I'm not, are you even thinking about another book yet?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, yeah, it's important to always kind of be forward thinking. So
Yeah.
I have a couple of ideas around what's next in regards to my next book. I want to release a series for my next work. I think I want to release a series. I don't want to give too much away yet, but excited about that. Excited about story time with Uncle Colby, and really like providing a platform again for other diverse authors. I think that is what you're doing, and what many of our peers are doing, in creating this space for people to come in and share their story. I think that's incredibly important. And so I am looking, yeah, I'm just looking at doing some things like that, just creating spaces for us to come to rally together and support. We don't have to be in competition with each other. There is space for all of us.
All the time. No true reader only reads one book. Nobody is going to read one book and say, I'm never reading another book again. So just because they didn't buy your book today does not mean that they won't buy your book tomorrow. But if you are rude to them because they didn't buy your book today, they will remember and they won't buy your book tomorrow.
That's right. That's right. That is that is incredibly important to know, to understand. Like it's a marathon. What did they say? It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right. No, you're right. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
But it is like don't be defeated because people didn't purchase your book. But also, it is. There's a pastor here in the DC area that just says it's nice to be nice. It's just nice to be nice.
Yes.
Right? Treat people as you would like to be treated, and know that they don't have to support you. Nobody is mandated to pay their money, their 13 or however much your book is priced at. Nobody has to do any of that. And so people respect.
I went live a couple of days ago and I said that I'm like, we as consumers expect the most for our money. We expect the best for our money. And so if we as consumers want the best for our money, we as authors have to give that same respect to the people who are buying our books, because nobody is entitled to somebody spending $20 on their book, or $25 or $15, or however much your book costs. That's their hard-earned money. So why should they spend that much money on a book that you didn't put your own heart and soul into?
That's right. That's right. And I think what you just said, that latter piece about putting your heart and soul into it, like, you need to produce a quality work. Don't just, no shade or no slight to anybody, but like, you need to invest in this product, right? So if you are a children's book author, you need to invest in quality illustrations, quality printing, quality publishing. All of those things are essential for the success. Like, if you're, like you just said, if you're not investing your all in it, then nobody's gonna want to get your product. So make sure that you do your due diligence as an author.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wish we could talk longer, but our next guest is already in the studio. But awesome. Derrick, thank you so much for joining me tonight. This was an amazing conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you. And since we're both in the DC area, we've got to make sure that we connect.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Rhonda, for the opportunity. I really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Now, all of you, do not forget, let's support these books. It's Son You Matter and A Special Little Girl. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. And you can find his book on, I'm going to go ahead and put it on the screen so you can see it. There's his website. DJA Colby DJakolbywashington.com.
That's it. DJakolbywashington.com. And please follow me on social media. I'm at DJakolby on Instagram, Derrick Jakolby Washington on Facebook. I am DJakolby on Twitter. So please make sure that you follow me. I'd love to connect with each of you.
And so if they go to your website, they can find links to all of your social media. Is that correct?
Yep, you'll be able to find all of those links. And actually, if you purchase through my website, you get a signed copy of the books. Any other platforms, I can't promise a signature, but certainly mine, you will get a signed copy of the book.
That sounds great. Thank you once again. You have a blessed night. I really enjoyed talking to you. Let's make sure that we stay connected.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, you have a great one.
Take care.
All right, so that was Mr. Derrick Jakolby Washington. I'm about to call him Doctor. You know, we're speaking that into existence. But I'm about to bring on our next guest, Miss Harriette Patrick Barron. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I hate saying people's names wrong, and I'm always afraid I'm going to say it the way I think it's supposed to be said, and it's going to be totally different.
That's all right.
How are you tonight?
I'm great. Thank you. Looks like I'm bringing y'all a Southern taste here. I'm in Texas, so it's good to talk to you.
I'm not in Texas at all because I'm from Louisiana. I just happen to live in the DMV.
Oh, you're my neighbor. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what part of Texas are you in?
Well, right now I'm in Lewisville, Texas. It's like in the Dallas Metroplex.
Okay.
It's up here, but I'm from East Texas, from Tyler and Athens. Athens is a tiny little town in East Texas where I grew up. Beautiful East Texas. But we're up in the Metroplex at this time.
Okay. Okay. Now, are you planning on going to the National Black Book Festival in Houston?
I am.
Yay.
But I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to make it, but I'm going to try so hard to make it.
I'll be there. I want to see you in person.
I'm seriously thinking about it. I just got to get my child care in order because I understand.
I do. I do understand that. When I started this author journey, I had I think she was 4 at the time, a 4-year-old daughter, and I used to take her on book signings with me. Mm-hmm. I would sometimes I would travel with her. Sometimes I would entrust friends to keep her for the weekend while I ran off to sign books, and it's not an easy process. So I totally understand.
Right. My children they're fixing to be 8 and 9. So 2 beautiful girls.
Oh.
My little 1-pounders, both were 1-pound miracles. So we'll see. Wow. They're healthy and strong now, but yeah, that's a journey within itself. So we'll see, but I'm definitely hoping to make it in October.
Okay, well, I hope you can make it. And if you do, like I said, I want to make sure that I meet you face to face.
Absolutely.
So tell me about your book, ma'am, because I was looking over first of all, let me just say every once in a while I meet an author who I slide into their DMs on Instagram. And this was one of the authors I slid into her DMs, and I only did it a few days ago, and she like snapped up that June 19th. I'm like, okay, she was like. But I went over your bio, and you do quite a bit, and it seems like you have a really big interest in mental health.
Absolutely. As a mental health case manager, I'm a former mental health case manager, but also a recipient of mental health services. And I incorporate all those experiences into my books, all of my books. And I have a huge interest in mental health because, of course, we know there's not enough money directed toward mental health.
Right.
Crisis mental health case manager. And it's heartbreaking to see someone who is just barely hopeful, like literally they're not wanting to die, but they're not wanting to live. And because they're not actively suicidal with the plan, then we have to put them on a waiting list or say, go see your doctor. And, before we know, the police was bringing them in 2 weeks later because they were already so fragile, and there just wasn't enough money to service these people. As you know, medical care is not cheap for just regular medical care. And then for health care, you either have insurance or money. And so people were just really suffering. And it just broke my heart to put them on a waiting list only to commit them to a psych hospital 2 weeks later.
Mm. Now, I think that mental health has had a very good PR agent over the last few years.
Oh yeah.
There was a huge stigma where people did not want to get help. It was thought of as only something that rich white people did,
Right.
that black people don't get therapy.
Right.
The running joke was that when somebody needed help, you just kept them in the house and you didn't let them go outside. And that may have been the way that people knew to handle it back in those days. But lately, people have learned that mental health is great. Our therapy is great for your own mental health.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you're crazy. It doesn't mean that you're less than.
Exactly.
It just means that you need a disinterested party to talk with, somebody who can help you to, I hate to say fix your life, but just somebody who can help you to just get back on track sometimes.
Right. Right. My senior year in college, I was the victim of a kidnapping and sexual assault. I was held at gunpoint for 8 hours.
Oh my God.
After that experience of being threatened with my life, shotgun to the back of my head, and then been assaulted, the whole works. I got no mental health treatment after that. If you can believe it, none was offered to me by the court. My parents did not know what to do because, as you know, a lot of mental health services, our community as African Americans, like you said, recently, we're just now getting information. What goes on in this house stays in this house. That is generation, and that has not worked then, and it's sure not working now. Sometimes it needs to get out of the house so you can get the help you need. But my parents, they didn't know what to do. And so I literally struggled through it myself, but between prayer and just, good old talking it out. But I was not offered any services by the courts. No.
You would think with something like that,
yes,
something that would be automatically offered that you wouldn't have even had to ask for.
Exactly. I got no crisis services. But when I came, it took me 2 years to work through that. But when I came through that, that's how I became interested in being a mental health case manager to help those who've been victim of trauma and abuse and neglect, just maybe depression. Later on, I suffered severe depression because I waited 10 years to become a mother. My husband and I finally got pregnant, and the baby was premature, and she died. And I was too through. But I sought counseling, and I'm so glad I sought counseling for myself. And even, of course, an advocate for counseling. And even in my book, my main character, she loses a child and she seeks counseling. And so I have this marriage of mental health and trauma and joy and sorrow all combined because I've went through those exact things myself.
Wow. So when did you decide, okay, counseling has worked for me, I want to be able to help other people? What was that moment where you decided that this was what you wanted to pursue?
It took me 2 years to recover from, like I said, being kidnapped and sexually assaulted. My parents were pastors, so I'm a PK all the way. And there was a young lady, a young girl in our church. She was 10 at the time. And I literally noticed she began to gain weight. She became withdrawn. Everything I was going through is as if I looked in the mirror. I looked at her, sudden change in personality. She just changed. But it was the same changes that I had. I gained weight on purpose. I wanted to be unattractive. I never did the cutting, but I would pinch my skin and just hated myself. And I looked at her and she was doing the same thing. And I figured out pretty quickly, this young lady's been molested. And I acted on my suspicion, and it was all true. It was all true. And I said, okay, if I can help her, and literally, I feel like God used her to help me stop looking at my own pain. And literally, God helped me to focus on her pain. And I looked around my church, and there were several girls in the exact same situation.
Wow.
So all of them, and all except like one had been a victim of molestation.
I don't want you to speak badly on your church. I mean, I'm a Christian as well, but I've been doing a lot of reflecting, and I felt that there were probably things that I could have dealt with sexually growing up. If my church members did not make me feel like I had to hide it.
Right. Oh, exactly.
Yeah. So when you don't become empowered by something when you're afraid to show it.
Exactly.
And I wonder if some of these girls who were going through molestation, I'm not saying that they let it happen, but because they were so ashamed that
Right.
they didn't seek help.
Right. Right. And see, that's another thing about educating. I believe social workers, counselors need to go into our churches and educate the
Yeah.
people there. Because sometimes it's like, well, we don't want to say anything, or sometimes they don't know what they're looking at. Some people never been victimized. They had a great life, never had molestation, none of that, and they don't know the symptoms. I had been through it that very recently, so I knew exactly what I was looking at, and so that got me to get a group together. My friends and I, Rosen and Linda, we all formed a little group, and we began to mentor the girls at our church. And we had all kinds of people coming to our church from different families, broken families, homes. So we had to literally kind of coordinate that. And once we talked to our pastors, who of course was my dad, then he understood. He was like, oh my goodness. Then he knew what he was looking at after we educated him. So that support was there. And thank God we knew what to do, the agencies to contact and kind of go further. You just don't sit up and pray about it. You better put some action on that for the sake of those victims. And that's exactly what we did.
That's beautiful. I am so glad that you were able to not only tackle this yourself, but that you were able to find a family of people who supported you in that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now that's a beautiful thing. Now, when did you decide that you wanted to expand that platform into writing books?
Well, I call myself the accidental author. I had went through that whole experience. I graduated in sociology. Well, about 4 years later, I returned to school. I thought I was going to get my teacher certification. And of course, I never got that. But I went back to school and I was in my writing class. And my teacher, she goes, you need to write about something that happened. I was not going to write about kidnapping and all of that. I'm
Right.
going to write a beautiful story. But God put upon my heart and says, no, you need to write about that. I'm like, I'm not writing about that. They ain't nobody's business. I wrote about it. I read my paper, and it was exactly about the kidnapping, the assault, and how God restored me. Like I said, painfully, but I made it through. Well, I read my story of faith and redemption, and I had the paper up to my face because I couldn't even look up. I was so embarrassed. When I took that paper down, my whole class, who was all females, were just crying.
Mm.
What is going on here? And there was so many victims in that class that had never talked about it. I was like, oh my God. And they got me after class. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for telling me. And my teacher, she goes, you need to write a book. I was like, I don't want to write a book about that. I sat down and I began to write and share my story. And the next thing I know, I had 180 pages. And that was my very first book that I published called Coffee Time with Daddy. And that's how I knew.
Wow. So now tell me what Coffee Time with Daddy is all about.
That's Coffee Time with Daddy is exactly about my whole experience in college. I go more in detail about the kidnapping, more in detail about the sexual assault and recovery, because I realized it wasn't just me going through this. There were so many women and young men that's been victims of trauma. I just trauma across the board. And so I wrote the book, and I put it out there, and that's what Coffee Time with Daddy is about. It's about the trauma and recovery after a crisis. Sometimes you are put on a waiting list for mental health services. You cannot be seen. So this book gives you step-by-step directions, what to do while you're waiting for that mental health treatment, whatever you need to get the help you need. This is, I guess it's maybe, it just helps you while you're waiting. That's the best way I can say it. Because some people never get that treatment and they don't. And so maybe this will kind of help them through that process, through that journey. And it's not an easy one, but it can be done and you can recover.
That's huge because I wrote a book called Twilight, and it was about a teenage girl who was dating a much older boy, and then when she broke up with him, he raped her, very, very violent rape. And she at first started blaming herself, like, I should have listened. I don't know why I put myself in this situation. So she basically goes through all of the phases of trying to get past what happened to her. And I think we often see that a lot with young girls in that situation to where they start to blame themselves or they hide things.
Right.
And so that's why I say it's a beautiful thing when somebody can help these girls, but without judgment. Because
Right.
that's the thing, they don't want to be judged.
Exactly. Exactly. Because you're already traumatized. And then
Mm.
you add a court system. And I'll tell you what, here's the thing. I didn't even get to take my case to court. So sometimes there's a feeling of now you add injustice on top
Yeah.
of trauma because my court appointed attorney quit. This was a part of South Texas. They lost my file,
Oh
like
my goodness.
treatment. When I tell you we wound up selling out of court. It was just his word against mine. It went like years and years
Mm.
with no justice. So then I had to deal with that bitterness and the injustice on top of the trauma.
Yes.
So a lot of people, they don't have that chance to deal with that and to get that closure that you need. And I believe I had to answer a question in my book. If you don't get that closure, if you never get that, I'm sorry. If you never get that, I was wrong. You may never get that closure. You still got to forgive in your heart so you can be free. They're already free. I know people that's done victimized people, 10, 15 folks and went on down the road. They done went on with their life like they hadn't done nothing. And the is left holding this heavy burden. So that also is part of that book. How do you forgive to let yourself be free, no matter if you've been a victim of injustice, trauma? You still got to be healed. No matter what they do, you've got to be complete for you.
Yes, absolutely. Now, what are some of the other books? And are the other books, do they address some of these same subjects?
Here's a funny thing. I never planned to be a novelist. Coffee Time with Daddy is exact what happened to me. I thought I'll write this one book and that's it. But I kept getting these stories in my head. I thought, what am I thinking about? And so I wrote a book the first book was called The Conversion of the Thug. And in every book, there's I never realized that my main protagonist has been victimized or been experienced trauma in some way, and they always manage to find a way to recover. So when I read all my books, I go, that's a common theme that I didn't even intend for that to be a thing, that there's trauma and recovery. And I realized, you know what, that's so deep in my heart because I was traumatized and I recovered. So my other books are novels, which is really weird. I never planned to be a novelist, but all my main characters have these, well, not wonderful, but these traumatic events, and they go through stages and deal with their trauma. And like I said, there's laughter, there's crying, there's joy. It's all real life issues that we deal with every day. And I put a little bit of my story in each book because I've had so much to happen. So I kind of live through my characters, things that I wanted to do or should have did, or, kind of live through them vicariously, as they say.
Right. So do you find it easier to write about your experiences through a fiction lens rather than a nonfiction? I'm going to tell my memoirs.
Not really. My characters, I'm the youngest of 4 children. And so I'm the one that kind of held everything in. But my characters are loud. Like my main character, her name is Secret. She's loud, she's strong, she's bold. All the things I wanted to be. But I didn't have the courage to speak up when I should have. Just through my lifetime, I was kind of, my mama, in the South, we say mealy mouth. And my mom, she goes, I didn't raise no coward. I'm like, honey, you had one. Yes, you did. Because my mom is real strong, she's real strong. And I was like, eh. So she's like, come on, get on out there and fight. And I'm like, I just don't want to fight. Well, my character, she's a fighter. She says exactly what she wants. And I'm like, I want to, one day I want to say exactly how I feel. And so I kind of live through my characters, and I'm more outspoken now, in my older age. But for years, I was just quiet. I just held it all in. And a lot of things I should have said and didn't say, I wanted to get it out, but I just didn't know how. And my character, she gets it out. She says exactly what she means. And I love that. So it's part of my story, but her character is what I want it to be. So I guess that's probably the way why I wrote it like that. I didn't
really like me. I say I write from the what if factor. I mean, I might look at something that may have happened in real life and then ask myself, what if it had happened this way? And then I try to write from there.
Right. I love that. That's exactly right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how many books do you have now?
I have 4 in all. This book, the current book that we're talking about, The Wedding This Summer, this is a sequel. The first book is called By This Time Next Year, but right now it's I'm creating a second edition. So I had the one book, and then I pulled it to enhance it, second edition.
Yes.
I wrote The Wedding This Summer, which is a current book, and then there's one after that. So it's going to be a series, which I never planned to do a series, but the story just kept revolving, and I also have I guess evolving, and then I also have the conversion of the thugs. So it's going to be, well, it's 4 in all right now. It's 4 in all right now, and they're all listed on my website. But like my second edition will be out soon of this book here. There's 1, 2, and then it's going to be a 3.
Okay, well, here is your website. I'm putting it back on the screen for those who are looking for it. And you can find the covers and the links to all of the books.
Right. Thank you so much.
Get a signed copy if they go to your website?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they're going to love the book. I promise they're going to love the book.
Okay, y'all heard that here. You are going to love the book.
You're going to love the book. Right.
Now, what do you have next coming up?
Well, you know what? I have a few things coming up. I'm working on the trilogy, which I never planned to be a trilogy, but right now I'm working on the 3rd installment of the By This Time Next Year series. This time next year, The Wedding This Summer, and I'm working on The Winter Storm, which is going to be so awesome. I took a turn, and now there's a lot of action, and there's kidnapping in the book. There's rescue. There's love. Oh, I got some old beat up Marines who's going to come back into action. I wanted my Marines to know, just because you're retired does not mean we don't need you. You are still valuable. Right. And I talked to some former Marines, and they're like, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that. And I also have a strong mental health component in all the books, but this 3rd one, there's a strong mental health component for our veterans and those dealing with PTSD. So, and I just kind of married those two with my main character. And it's just going to be great. I mean, you know, she's rescued by some old beat up Marines that's still valuable. And after that, there's one called Josephine. And I'm going to address the light skin, dark skin, whole history of an African American community. And that's when I've been really
that's heavy.
Whew, that's going to be a good one.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. So when do you plan for that book to be released?
Which one? I'm working.
Just a couple of them you talked about.
Yes. Okay. Well, I tell you what, the second edition of By This Time Next Year will be out in probably about 2 months.
Okay.
So be able to buy The Wedding This Summer and By This Time Next Year together. They're already available now, but you know, if you just want to do part 1 and part 2, and then book 3 will be out in 2024. So that's my trilogy.
You're a busy lady.
I am working. Whew, yes.
So how do you find time to do all this writing while you're still ministering at your church?
Yes. Well, my father passed away, so right now we're just attending. We're in another church, but I do go and have a great time. My children, like I said, were born at 1 pound each. They're 15 months apart. So I had years of struggling, which is why I had to come out of the workforce at that time. You know, like I said, my doctor looked at my husband and said, well, which one of y'all are going to quit your job? With a 1 pound baby, you already know somebody's going to be at home.
Right.
For all therapists for years. And of course, it was me. Since I was breastfeeding, I thought, well, maybe that's got to be me to be here. And it was a journey within itself, a great journey. They're doing great now, but we're still on that journey. And I just find time when they're sleeping. They're very active. I have a sister that is on dialysis, so I'm her caretaker as well. And I have a husband battling kidney disease. So we have a lot going on, and I'm just trying to balance it out. But I find time when everyone is asleep and the house is quiet is when I do my very best writing.
Yes, I'm kind of that way myself. I think I started it when I told you my daughter was 4 years old when I got into this literary game. And after she went to bed is when I could start my writing. So I was never able to start my writing. I put her to bed, get the house together. It would be after 9 o'clock. And then I would just write once she had gone to bed. That was the only time I could do it.
Exactly.
But no, absolutely commend you for all that you're doing. I mean, because you were holding down your household, you're still ministering, and you're still writing, and you're still helping people. You've built your platform,
Mhm.
so that's a lot to carry, but you've been able to do it, and you're doing it well.
Thank you. By the grace of God. Well,
And,
and you know, I didn't mention my husband's grandmother stayed with us, and I care for her too. She passed away in November.
oh
So,
wow,
uh, you know, that was a very interesting ride, the whole hospice aspect. And I was educated. Just a little side note, we talked about how our community is not educated. I got so much education from the social workers dealing with, you know, the Medicare, Medicaid, and the elderly, and what
yes,
you lose when you pass away if you do not have your affairs in order, what they can come and take after you pass away. Your family has nothing if your paperwork is not in order.
that's right.
They educated my family, and we get her stuff together, and I thank God for it. So we were dealing with that situation on top of everyone else I care for, but that was a great experience, and thanks to her I was able to finish the book because she's in there. But I'm just saying, education, we've got to educate ourselves on mental health, and also on the end of life treatment for our aging parents and grandparents. We got to
Absolutely.
get the education, y'all, before, you know, they pass away, and you think you're going to gain the house or the land, whatever they left you. You realize nothing is in writing. I'm telling you, that's not good. It can go another way for the family. So we got to get our affairs in order as a people.
Absolutely. It is very important to to have your will, so that way everything that you have, you know exactly where it's going.
Right.
And then it's also good for the mental health of the family because nobody's
Mhm.
arguing over anything,
There
nobody's
you
fighting over anything.
right.
And then your burial is taken care of. I remember going to a funeral, and then after the funeral, while everybody's sitting around the living room, the undertaker, I guess they called the undertaker, they had to come in and have the very uncomfortable conversation that there's still money owed.
Woo.
Yeah, and we need to collect the money, and everybody had to try to come out of their pockets and try to make a collection so they
Yeah.
can pay for this.
Yeah,
And
that's embarrassing.
yeah, so that's why it's so important to have your life insurance in order, so
Right.
you don't have to, your family doesn't have to have that uncomfortable conversation. You're already sad, they're already grieving.
Right.
This man has to come in and have this uncomfortable conversation saying y'all still owe me
Mm.
$2,000 or whatever it is.
Mm. Yeah, been there. I've witnessed that also, and that's so embarrassing for the family. It's
Mm,
traumatic too.
right, right. So I mean, I pray that um well, I'm retired Army, so
Oh, there
I'm,
you
I'm
go.
gonna be taken care of.
Put you in there. I should have had the Army rescue and
Because I would have been a beat up old soldier.
right now. Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support.
Hmm.
I'm just really glad that you're really attacking the issues that you're attacking because they're so important. That people understand these things. So if you don't remember anything else tonight, remember, people, get your affairs in order while you still have a chance, because you never know when the time will come,
You
and
just don't.
you don't
Mhm.
want your family fighting. You don't want them worrying about how they're going to bury you or anything like that.
Mhm. Or cremate you, and you didn't want to be cremated.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
money for a real funeral, so we did what we had to do. We'll address it in eternity. You know,
Mhm.
we sure did. I'm sorry. So
Harriet, but thank you for joining me tonight. I really enjoyed our conversation. It was great meeting you, and like I said, I hope to see you in Houston. But if not in Houston, I hope I see you just any other time. We have lots of stuff going on.
thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Let's stay in touch with each other.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And all of you, thank you so much for joining me tonight in Horizons Author Lounge. I told you this was going to be a great conversation, and it absolutely was. Both of our authors were engaging. They had a great message. So make sure you guys get out and support both of these great authors because they're doing some wonderful things in our community. So those of you who've been following me for a while, you know I always have something going on. So earlier tonight or earlier today, I mentioned that I'll be doing a virtual writers retreat on July 8th and 9th. So check the Instagram page, the Meet the World Image Solutions Instagram and Facebook pages for more information. If you're a part of the list, the Team MTW newsletter, you will be getting more information. But this is going to be an amazing time for us to get together, really concentrate on our writing, get some concentrated classes on writing. We're going to be talking about plot development, character development. We're going to be sharing tips on marketing your books, ways, things that you need to do to get your book ready for publication. All of this jammed into one weekend, and I really want you all to be a part of it. And the best part is, because this is a virtual retreat and I'm still providing lunch, I will have lunch delivered to you. All you have to do is just register and then get ready to write. So more information to follow on that. I was going to go live today to talk about it. I will go live tomorrow evening so we can talk a little bit more about it before we jump on to Black Authors Matter TV. So I would love for you all to be there. And special treat, those of you who sign up early enough will have a special Mr. Crave's Cookies delivery coming to you as well. Yes. I know the owner of Mr. Crave's Cookies, and I think he'll hook me up. But he has, if you have not had his cookies, they are absolutely delicious. They're delectable. My favorite cookies are the snickerdoodle and the banana pudding cookies. Yes, I know. I see your face, Harriette. But so those of you who sign up for the retreat will get a few cookies delivered to you, as well as your swag bags. This is going to be a fun event. So I really would love for you all to be a part of it. So like I said, jump on the Instagram page tomorrow. I'll be going live about 6 o'clock in the evening Eastern time, and I'll tell you more about it. But as for that, after that, we are done for tonight. Thank you once again for joining me. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Black Authors Matter TV at 8 p.m. on the National Black Book Festival Facebook page. I can't wait to see you guys there. You guys have a wonderful evening. Have a blessed week, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.